Good afternoon. My name is Matthew Tubasine and I am running for president in 2024. I have a video about that on my channel, but that is not what this is about. I would like to talk to you tonight about entitlement and how that applies to what has been going on recently. And by recently, I think we can, go back to George Floyd, but more current, as it were, is GameStop. But before we get into specifics, let me just say there is no free market except the small local ones. The only capitalism that exists is just a predatory kind inflicted on the hoi polloi, and it's mostly socialism after you've attained a certain financial status. There really is no fair play involved, and just one simple example is no matter how much you make, your traffic fines are just the same as those for the poorest of the poor, so who has more incentive to break the law? Other countries have fixed that. And a large part of why we put up with that is, to paraphrase Seth Godin, link down below, a secret committee went to the US government over a century ago and said, I want every single child from the age of 5 up to spend every single day with me for 10 to 15 years in a row, and then I want to build into the culture a mindset of consumption and compliance. That's what happened. A school system that favored standardized testing over critical thinking was designed. We've been brainwashed into not questioning certain fundamentals, and though those change according to social strata, they are largely believed within groups and remain unquestioned. So, even if you're willing to question authority outside your tribe, whatever beliefs your tribe cherishes are the ones you'll likely adopt. But by and by, most of the larger truths are accepted as either true by a majority of Americans or not important enough to be concerned about or fight against. A few examples of these are the American dream as a descriptor of a lifestyle that is modern, fulfilling, and complete, as opposed to one that is actually competitive, destructive, and shreds one's spirit, which is actually what we encounter. The free market as an economy that is an even playing field, as opposed to the speculative economy run by bankers and billionaires for largely their profit and the lucky few who join their ranks. Socialism is evil when it has been practiced for the benefit of the wealthy since this country's inception in the form of subsidies and tax breaks and bailouts, all corporate welfare. Money trickles down, a line of pure bullshit. And our most recent example is, according to Business Insider, billionaires made $3.9 trillion during the pandemic, while workers lost $3.7 trillion. Just consider that. Billionaires made $3.9 trillion, workers lost $3.7 trillion with a TR. Now, if it were at least somewhat more of a playing field and say workers didn't lose anything and billionaires made $3.9 trillion, it would have been uncomfortable to deal with that if you weren't one of the billionaires, but we could put up with it. But we lost $3.7 trillion while they made $3.9 trillion. Think about that. That is a difference of $7.8 trillion. Now we hear all the time, oh, we can't spend that much money on people who are out of work, and that's socialism. Again, the rich already enjoy socialism. We have to deal with capitalism. They have socialism. And just a perfect example of that right now is look at how they've been speculating and scamming the stock market for years. And now that the hedge funds have been gamed by the retail buyers, they're all pissed off. Hey, this isn't supposed to happen to us. We're not supposed to endure risk when we play. Only you're supposed to endure risk. See, it's not a level playing field. It never was. It never was supposed to be. I mean, on paper, yes. In reality, no. The rich get richer, the poor get poorer, and the middle class tends to disappear. And that's an oversimplification and not 100% true, especially concerning the middle class, but it is tending towards that way. And on top of the whole socialism is evil because we practice capitalism and we're a free and democratic country. Well, we've already established, no, we don't practice capitalism. And we're barely a free and democratic country. Consider this. We are the least free country in the world if you're using the metric of how many people and even per capita are incarcerated or jailed in this country. We have more in terms of pure numbers and per capita than any other country in the world. Why is that? I thought we were the home of the free. How can you be the home of the free when you have a greater percentage of your population in jail than any other country? We are not the home of the free. Every other country is the home of the free when compared to us by using just that one metric. Of course, there are other metrics, but we can discuss that in another video. This one's covering a lot of ground so that we can divvy it up in smaller sections and discuss that further down the road. But in terms of being democratic, we've got two parties. Two parties. We're the only democracy with only two main parties. Everybody else has more. And in terms of how we elect people, it's winner take all. That is not the most democratic way of doing it. There are weighted elections, there are other different ways of doing it, but when you look at the two parties, when you look at the gerrymandering, when you look at the ability of the two parties to monopolize media, to keep third parties out of debates, this is not democracy. And on top of that, the GOP in Arizona has just floated legislation which basically says if we don't like how the election turns out, we could just throw out what the voters want and elect our own. Yes, that is true. That is what the GOP in Arizona wants to do. They just want to throw elections out the window. No, I'm not saying they're not going to hold elections, but let's face it, if the GOP are in charge and the people elect Democrats, what do you think is going to happen if the GOP can say, you know what, we're really not happy with your choice, we're going to go in a different direction? I mean, seriously, this is what they're trying to do. They don't even cover it up anymore. Wall Street doesn't cover up the fact that, hey, we're in this for the rich. We don't give a shit about the little guy. We will even beg for regulation to keep the little guy down because they're playing by our rules and we're getting screwed. And to nail this home, this is what's going on, and there will be another link down below. The guy who discussed this is really good. You need to watch him. But he's been watching BlackBerry, and Robinhood is only allowing enough sale of Robinhood stock. They're allowing only blocks of like 5 or 16 or 25, whatever number happens to fit their formula. So they're keeping the stock right around $14 per share. Because if they do that, if they keep it at $14, then the big boys get rich. If it goes above that, then somebody's losing out big, and Robinhood, in cahoots with the big boys, are keeping the stock. Well, what they're doing, they are manipulating the stock, which is, of course, illegal, but they'll probably get away with it because the law is not designed to put certain players in jail. It's only designed to put certain players in jail. We all understand this. It's a matter of entitlement. It is class warfare. And everything else, the racism, the politics, all the stuff that's going on with Trump and the insurrection, all this other stuff, it's a distraction, either by design, and by that I really don't mean this big lizard people conspiracy theory. I mean, they try to design this stuff, but we know whenever you get enough people involved, that many variables, things just don't turn out well. The thing is, never let a crisis go unwasted. They will use any opportunity to create as much confusion, as much uncertainty, as much ignorance in the population as possible, while not necessarily going to a back room and in under the cover of darkness, getting together and mapping this out on, a plan. But they all know what works and what doesn't, and whether they're planning this together, whether it actually is a conspiracy, and whether there are enough people just throwing enough wrenches in the cogs often enough to keep everything off kilter so we don't put everything together, get a handle on it, and do like what Reddit did to the hedge fund guys. Because we can do that. They know we can do that if we're any bit organized, because they're not organized. I mean, they're more organized than your average citizen. The Democrats have their party, the Republicans have their party. They do have a certain structure involved, but as we see with the Republican Party right now, they're eating their own. So, there's people involved. There's only so much organization you can bring into it. Everybody has an ulterior motive. But the thing is, all of the really crazy conspiracy theories on the right, that works to their advantage, believe it or not. No matter how much the left bitch about it, it actually works to their advantage, and the more savvy ones understand this and will clutch their pearls and whine and cry about it, all the while inside thinking, hot damn, this is some great shit going down. I really love this. But the fact is, we've got the education system. We already know that that's just designed to churn out factory workers, basically. It's not designed so that you can think smarter. It's designed for you to know certain things so you can go to work and be a good employee. Rampant consumption, that's what it's all about. We know that the banks basically run the Federal Reserve. Did you know that, and I don't know if I have this exactly right, but I'm pretty sure there are 100 shares of the Federal Reserve, and those shares are all owned by banks. Now, consider that. Banks are all private companies. They all own the Federal Reserve through those shares. The Federal Reserve is supposed to be of the people, by the people, for the people. It's not. The banks own it. We know that Wall Street is completely run now by these fat cats and backed by, to a large extent, the media and government, and the little guys, now that they're starting to get a piece of the action, everybody's freaking out. The media says, this isn't right. They don't know what they're doing. They haven't done their due diligence. They can't profit. That's not the way it's supposed to work. Oh my God. So in any event, this sounds like a whole bunch of stuff that was just like jammed together, but all things are interconnected. And well, there's no way that I can put that in this video, any of that. Look into it if you don't believe me, but Salvador Dali said it best. Everything is in everything else, and vice versa. I'm just trying to get across the point that when you look at the elite and the entitlement that they enjoy, and how all that entitlement trickles up constantly, meaning we have less and less rights because of that all the time, and the education system, and the banking system, and a few other things to throw in there that I can't think of right now, but, well, the justice system. The thing is, these all work. They're a cohesive whole. And they work hand in hand to keep certain peoples, the hoi polloi, down, and to buoy up the elite so that they are entitled, we're deprived, and that's just the way it is. And they will do everything they can to keep people like me and others from trying to impart this knowledge from those who haven't latched on yet. But the thing is, that's the way it works in this country. And don't get me wrong, I understand all the great things about America. And I understand how much worse it could be and how much worse it is in other countries that are struggling to become something more like us. But the fact is, we could be a hell of a lot better. With all the resources at our disposal, we could really be a great country. And, well, I don't want to say we could be a great country and stay there, because I do understand the cyclical nature of everything. You know, you can't fight the universe. This is a gravity problem. You can't fight those. But the thing is, we know what's screwed up. The elite knows what's screwed up. We know what's screwed up. They like it that way. There's not a lot we can do about it. But if we fixed all these problems, this could be a great country and remain so for some time to come. And before I bow out, consider this. There are a number of studies out there about the social consequences of wealth inequality, and they have found that the countries that suffer the most wealth inequality tend to suffer culturally and socially the most, including the rich people. So being really rich in a rich country doesn't make your life a better thing if everybody else isn't rich also. So for all those people out there who think, yeah, I got mine, I'm a have, they're have-nots, things are just great. No, they're not. And I'm sorry that you don't have the foresight to see that. Being able to make a profit does not mean you got a bunch of wisdom to go along with it. I thank you all for watching. And if you didn't watch, well then, what's wrong with you, man? And before you go, click everything down below, please. Contribute to my Patreon. I will continue to bring you these entertaining videos, but I'm not making any money right now. And fortunately, I can afford that for a moment, but it ain't gonna last long. Thanks. Talk to you tomorrow.